Thanks, Billy, and good morning to each and every one of you. And what a fantastic morning it is. And that sun's creeping up now, so we can get a bit of warmth coming through to us. Really very inspiring to see all your faces and to understand that the purpose of why we're gathering here this morning, and sharing a meal and talking to each other and celebrating our sense of collective community, but also understanding where we've come from and thinking about the path forward, the ways forward for our communities. My personal journey, I'm from this region. I've been living in Shepparton since about 1980, but my family grew up in this region. We've been here as a family for the last 70,000 years. We only recently got a letterbox so that we can get those window envelopes addressed to us, and that's I think a part of the decimation of Aboriginal people when we got letterboxes, I think. But we lived here on the flats, and people know the recent story of the flats. Our Aboriginal people came here after 1939 walk-off at Cumragunja and settled here between Marutna and Shepparton on the riverbanks and near the tip site, which is now the fruit connection. And Mum talked of living in the tents there and getting out one morning and putting her feet into water after the river flooded overnight, and then moving up to Rumbalara, where the current administration is, and then we moved back to Cumragunja. So I grew up on Cumragunja and attended the Aboriginal primary school there at Cumragunja, and we went from there. It was a composite grades of 0 to grade 6, and then we went off to Nathalia and others for secondary schooling. I lived in a privileged type of environment where I lived with my people. I lived amongst other Aboriginal families, and I think the impact of cultural oppression or assimilation wasn't as strong as it is currently. And we moved as Aboriginal people with other Aboriginal people across different missions, Aboriginal reserves about Moonaculla and, in our case, Balranald Mission and Muddatunga Mission in Robinvale, and we were communicating quite regularly and socialising and interacting as Aboriginal families in that way. I think since the 60s and the 70s, we've become more and more strongly integrated into the town environments, and it's placing lots of pressure on Aboriginal family structures to maintain their sense of social connection and to engage, and the sort of benchmarks we're putting against Aboriginal people and Aboriginal families and individuals to achieve. But that's a little bit of a personal sort of overview, I suppose, of how we get to where we are today. But welcome here this morning to celebrate a significant admission of fault and an apology. And it was an apology for the success of the policy of assimilation and the systematic removal of kids, of Aboriginal young people. And there is no family across Victoria or here in Yorta Yorta country that was not subjected to or impacted by the application of this policy. Its intent and lasting legacy continues to decimate the lives of Aboriginal people, Yorta Yorta families today. The former Prime Minister, Mr Kevin Rudd, issued that apology in 2008 on behalf of the Australian people. The legacy of generational grief and trauma which continues to scar our people and that of the Australian culture saw our current Premier Daniel Andrews on the front page of The Age acknowledge a significant rise in 2015 in the out-of-home care of Aboriginal kids in Victoria. And I think we had the Closing the Gap report being handed down yesterday, and it hasn't really saw the improvement that we're looking for. You would need to ask the question as to whether the Australian people's response to this admission has been of the necessary depth to bridge the divide and to empower the people. As the apology, or did the apology stimulate, validate or initiate action as it shifted the hearts and minds of the Australian people and leadership across politics and industry? And I think, it has started to move, and I think we've got a lot of shift in attitudes across, especially captains of industry across, the reconciliation action plans that have been developed with major industries across Australia, but the way in which governments are now viewing the approach to Aboriginal futures is a lot more focused on how to build the empowerment and autonomy of Aboriginal regions to take control of the issues at a very micro level in Aboriginal family homes. I think, do you think we've generated, the necessary policy platforms that lead not to a notional reconciliation, but to recognising the call for a treaty, something which Aboriginal people have been advocating for since the 1800s? Do you think this apology has generated the necessary reparations to address the grief and ongoing legacy of trauma in its many forms? We live in a very prosperous region. This region has the resources to make the difference. I'm putting here today that we need to take affirmative action on repositioning the value of Indigenous peoples in the society in which we live in. We can't always be characterised by the poverty and the deficit that underpins the face of Indigenous engagement. We need to have a position of relevance in the social and economic community of the Goulburn Murray, of Shepparton, of Echuca, Kyabram and the towns and regions we're living in. The apology signified that all tiers of government accept legal and moral responsibilities to acknowledge and redress the humanity of Aboriginal people. We are the original people. We are Indigenous to this land. We have evolved here in Yorta Yorta country over many, many, many thousands of years. Our sense of spirituality has been aligned to the intricate balance of nature and the environment. That shifted quite considerably with the imposition of the invasion and the imposition of Christianity and our interpretation of the way Christianity works with Aboriginal spirituality. And I think we're still coming to terms with how that works. Our language, the Yorta Yorta language, is intrinsically tuned to the sounds, the smells and the physical expressions of the environment we live in. We take this responsibility of spirituality and relationship very seriously. It is embedded in our beliefs of creation and the land. Our schools, universities and libraries were in the forms of our elders, our social structures in corroboree, in dance, in song, in chant, our use of reckoning, of maths, of understanding, of science, of astrology, of birth and death. This sense of purpose and place of understanding, of power, of the mastery of our existence changed, as we all know, in a very catalytic way. We are recovering, but it's being a very, very slow process. Dispossession and genocidal practices in the early part, underpinned by notions of cultural superiority, almost wiped our people out, to the point where we're almost unrecognisable in our practices, in our physical practices to our ancestors. But we're strongly connected through our sense of identity and spirituality and connection to the land on which we live. We have been generationally subjected to a process that has been attempting to systematically and institutionally dismantle and replace our identity. This has to stop. In survival, we pay our respects to our elders, that have had to adopt the cultures that have come to our lands. It is without doubt the time to restore the balance, to restore the privilege to enjoy our inalienable rights to country, the benefits and the responsibilities that ensure. Today, we have symbolisms of engagement. We have the flag of the Aboriginal nation that we've attached ourselves to. We're looking to merge the sense of symbolism of Aboriginal flag, of Aboriginal identity with the Australian culture. We have places like Cumragunja where we sought refuge. We have organisations like the Rumballara Cooperative. We have the very famous Rumballara Football Netball Club, a place of social enjoyment and cultural affirmation. We have Aboriginal people in business, in universities, in administrative roles, in bureaucracy, in sport, in art, in music, right across the spectrum. We have approximately 5,000 Aboriginal people in the region in which we live in here, within a radius of around about 75 to 80 k's. That's a great asset to the region. It would be an understatement to say we are in a high state of anxiety, and there's a heightened sense of urgency to protect our heritage, our spiritual and cultural sites, our families, and our expressions of being Yorta Yorta, or being Aboriginal, or being the people where you come from. It's our responsibility, but we have been challenged by our capacity to meet that responsibility. We are doing our very best to protect, sustain and restore the knowledge of our ancestors, but we need your support to do that. As Yorta Yorta people, or as Aboriginal people, we are constantly translating and interpreting the way we go about everyday business, the way we go about our daily lives, into an Aboriginal view of that. So all of our interactions. We're doing that whilst we're pursuing the knowledge and skills in the universities and secondary schools that require us to get these skills to protect position ourselves in the 21st century. You would agree that the complexity of design of society, of Australian culture and diversity, from our perspective, will require Aboriginal people to have protection. It will require a multi-layered, multi-tiered treaty approach, a formal legal agreement of our humanity and rights as Yorta Yorta people. Treaty would be a gift to you, to society. It will facilitate the knowledge and practices of our ancestors to be present in our future, in your future, in the future of our collective society. It will address the act of invasion, of dispossession and illegal land acquisitions of Yorta Yorta country. It will position Australian society, the Goulburn Murray region, to construct its future without fear, to grow and mature as a nation, to celebrate, to establish a national and global identity that is inclusive and celebrated. This region already stands out as a region of leadership. It can stand out as the region that led this nation on reform. It can be recognised globally as a place of humanity, innovation and diversity. This can have a significant economic impact on our collective futures. So, be active in your pursuit of cultural knowledge and understanding and engagement. Assist develop the institutional approach to building knowledge, particularly through curriculum design and professional development. You can't be a passive bystander, complicit in the crime of ambivalence and inaction. This is the call. This is what the apology gave permission for people, not just Aboriginal, but for people to learn, to seek knowledge and to look at how we construct the future that lies in front of us. In closing, it's 20 years this year that the Rumballara Football Netball Club has been participating in a competition, and it's been a very, very positive 20 years, and it's where Aboriginal people have come into the social environment of the region that we live in, and in where we host the hospitality of other towns and other non-Aboriginal peoples coming into our place, which has been a fantastic learning experience both for ourselves and for the people that come in contact with us. So in closing, come to Rumballara Football Netball Club, become a paid up social member, support the symbolism of social engagement and the sharing of hospitality, celebrate with us, and barrack for the power of the people. So thank you very much this morning for listening.